What is reverse breathing, and what does that have to do with opening your third eye? Hello, my friends. My name is JC, and I'm your physical ascension guide. And today we're going to talk about reverse breathing. We're going to talk about some of other things. What's here on my list? We're going to explain the oscillator in the God equation. We're going to talk about getting involved, and we're going to talk about relationships today. So first, let's get into this reverse breathing and what it is. I got some notes here. We're going to go over. But basically, what it is you are creating this internal suction in your body, and it kind of makes you like a syringe, right? So again, we are, for those of you who are not familiar, opening your third eye is not just some woo psychological, it's all energy stuff. There's a real fluid that we're talking about moving through our body, okay? Everyone knows about the pineal gland, and it's not just the pineal gland, okay? So, I want to say that there's I can't remember his name. I know a bunch of you have seen him. I've seen him on my own path. I just can't think of his name. But he has a breathing technique. And I kind of got into him years ago, and also Wim Hof at the same time, because he has a breathing technique. And that's when I discovered, like, these teachers, they're good, right? But at some point you go past them. And that's what happened fairly quickly with those. There's this breathing technique, but they weren't giving me enough information. All they had was the breathing technique. There wasn't any details. There wasn't anything else other than, oh, you feel good. And there was no timing or anything. It's like, do it every day and stuff like that. And it just didn't seem correct or enough. It wasn't complete information. So I moved past it fairly quickly. And I use it as just one part of an overall technique, right? Like, you could probably just use this, maybe even. And a lot of people tell you, oh, it's just the breath. It's just the breath. I incorporate way more than that. You know, I got the brain squeezing, moving the body, the Kegel muscles, all that. So we're not just using the breath, although it is a very important part of it. Now, where did I learn this? I learned this as a very young child when I was in martial arts. I was in Kung Fu, and they taught us about Qi and reverse breathing. And I remember that they were teaching us this for us to keep our stomach muscles tight all the time, kind of like almost like you're always on guard for a punch to the gut or something, you know. And that was kind of the all I remember, and I'm sure he didn't go into too much detail. You know, he's dealing with a bunch of little kids, you know. So this reverse breathing creates this suction. Okay, so let's get into these notes here. So what you're doing is you're creating a negative pressure in your torso and a positive pressure up here. Okay, and that kind of just naturally helps pull these fluids through the body and down the spine. The belly seals it. It like seals off the spinal shaft, right, and helps pull this fluid through. The diaphragm pumps and pushes, and the spine becomes the channel, right? Excuse me. The lower section pulls, and the upper section pushes, okay? So the cerebral spinal fluid starts moving, the lymphatic flow, the interstitial fluids, I don't even know how to say that, and the endocrine secretions, the chrism tract starts flowing, okay? And it alters the pressure around the dural tube, the sheath around the spinal cord. Now, I've mentioned that before. People act like that don't even exist. So you got to remember, when you're talking to a doctor or something like that, most of them are not researchers, right? And so they're just going off the basics that they were taught in medical school, and they don't always teach about stuff like that. If you're not a specialist and you're not, you know, digging deep into the spine, they're just going to teach you basic stuff. So that you go ask your doctor, and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about, you know. So it doesn't mean that it's not real or it doesn't exist, okay? So when you do that, when you adjust that pressure, it's very mild, right? But it's enough to cause that pull upward, because it's a cycle. It goes down and up. Even micro movements cause it to move. It's the breath that lifts the elixir. This gradient like literally lifts it up. That's why the ancients were like, the breath is the elixir of life and stuff like that. They're not just saying, yes, the breath itself, but it's also the movements in the body that go with it, right? It's all part of it. They're not just talking about breathing in oxygen. The upward pressure drives the oil toward the sphenoid bone. Once the suction is created below and the diaphragm's pushing it up, what is this? Some of these words are so hard to say. I'm just reading them, doing my research, and just making up how you say them, So there's the seat of God in your head is called the cella turcica. I guess I'm saying that. I don't know. The cella turcica. So once you start getting these fluids and the suction going and stuff, that sphenoid bone starts rocking a little bit, and you're right there by the seat of God, this little space, right? And that's where all these little glands are sitting there. So when you start doing this stuff and you're rocking these bones in your brain, you start moving these glands around and squeezing these glands and stuff. So that actually activates the pituitary gland. And like physically, right? So all of a sudden your pituitary becomes active. Well, the pineal takes like signaling from the pituitary. And so it starts secreting fluids. So you're not necessarily squeezing your pineal, but you are kind of like physically manipulating your pituitary. The vertebral pump and the thoracic pump directs movement toward the cranial pump. The sphenoid bone and the cella turcica start moving. And at this point, the other pumps in the body kind of start activating too. And like I said, you could probably just do reverse breathing and have some kind of an experience, but I consider a lot more. Okay, I mean, we're even doing throat things with the tongue and humming, all kinds of stuff. But that said, this does activate a lot of the other pumps kind of automatically. Okay, like the pelvic, the sacrum, the lumbar, the thoracic, cervical, even the cranial and the sphenoid. Okay, so this is kind of weird. What the sutures in your skull, they're not as solid as people think. They move a little bit, and this causes that. Let me say that the suction from below and the cranial pump from above create this vertical hydraulic system. And that's kind of what's going on. And that's why it feels like you have this elevating pressure, tingling. Some people refer to it as the wind rising. So why the sphenoid bone responds so strongly? The sphenoid is like a literal fulcrum of the skull, and it rocks in there. And most people don't even know you have a bone, let alone that it moves in the center of your brain. So it increases the pressure, and the cranial sutures start moving, and the sphenoid rocks, the pituitary is stimulated, the pineal responds, and the chrism oil is released. And the suction from the torso draws the oil down and through its cycle, and then back up into the thalamus, and that completes the alchemical loop. And it's strongest during your moon cycle, right? That's why we're always talking about this. It's your 2.5 day cycle. And so that is reverse breathing in a nutshell, right? Okay, so you are creating this internal suction. And reverse breathing, all it is when you breathe in, you suck in your diaphragm kind of up. So I'm all pointing down here. You can't even see. Okay, so you want to pull your stomach like in and up. You're using that top muscle right here underneath your rib cage, right? And you're sucking it in, basically, up towards your spine. Just suck in, really. So all you have to do is, when you breathe in, suck in. Because your natural form of breathing is when you breathe in, your stomach goes out. So that's why it's called reverse breathing. So when you breathe in, you suck your stomach in. And when you breathe out, you push your stomach out. And that creates this internal suction. And like I said, a couple times now, it's just one of the aspects of the overall technique. So you want to do reverse breathing while you're doing the rest of the technique, right? While you're trying to push that, and you're doing that kind of worm motion, you still have to breathe in there. So make sure you're doing reverse breathing, okay? I want to talk a little bit about the oscillator. So in the God equation, you have O, right? So you have generator, oscillator, designer equals universe. So the oscillator is energy. And, I thought it was just one way. And how I came up with this part is that I remember it was, I think a professor, it's a black guy, he said that in the middle of string theory, he finds ones and zeros. I'm sorry, I just can't think of his name. Thomas Howell or something, maybe. Anyways, I was thinking about that, and I was like, okay, you have a 1 and a 0. That's a state. A 0 is a state. 1 is a state. But also, in between, if it's going back and forth, that itself is a state, right? It's moving. It's going back and forth. So that has to be a state, and it can't just be one way. There has to be a back. So consciousness has to have energy going into matter, but matter has energy going back into consciousness as well, right? So this is birth and death. And so it oscillates. The energy oscillates. It reminds me of like a pump that just goes up and then down, or something. Like even a heartbeat. It's an oscillator. It's not just one way. If it did, it'd just be a circle, like just bzzz, but it doesn't. It oscillates. There's a difference. It's like the swing of a pendulum. It doesn't just spin around the clock. It swings back and forth. Right? It oscillates. There's a big difference. And that's kind of what made me think of that too. Is that it oscillates. It's not a constant one-way direction. And also energy, like electricity, if you have it in a wire, it can't go both directions at once. So it can't be that either. It can't. It has to be two separate things, but it can't be energy going one way cannot be equal to consciousness and matter in its own. It has to have both aspects. It has to have both directions going to it together to equal the third. Does that make sense? You can't just have energy going one way and it equals a third in the equation. And it's not 4, it's only 3. So it has to be split, which makes it oscillating back and forth. So that's kind of how I came to that conclusion. And when I plugged it in that way, it worked. If you don't plug it in that way, it doesn't work. So that's how I came up with that aspect. And also with the whole thing with the couple, a man and a woman having a child, that's 1 times 1 equals 3, but that doesn't add up, right? There's something missing, and it was the energy. So energy is part of the equation. A man and a woman plus times energy, right, creates a new life, union, a third. So that's following the equation. So that's what the oscillator means. It's not just energy in one direction. Next on the list was get involved. Okay, so I've mentioned that before. My last video I talked about it, how me and my children do things that we don't put out there. It's just because that's how you should just naturally be, and you shouldn't be videotaping yourself doing that to try and get likes and stuff. That's like saying, "Oh, look at me! Look what good I did today!" Right? Like that's not it. But I want to encourage you to get involved. You don't have to go feed homeless people. There's so many things that you can do, and just try to do one. And then you don't even have to do it every day. Just one day a week. Just pick one day a week and go out into the world and do something. And I'm not talking about like protesting or stuff like that. I don't even get into politics. I'm talking about real things to go out into the world and really make a change and really help somebody, right? Do that. Just do anything. Go out and hand somebody a coat. Go out and hand somebody a cookie. Something. Do something. Anything to get involved in making the world a better place. And the reason I don't get into politics is because I have my own opinion about things. And I want you to have your own opinion about things too, right? And I want you to, I don't want you to be a clone of me, right? That's what I'm trying to say. I want you to be your own person and do your own things. But I will say one thing that's political that I'm for, and I don't see why it's political, because to me it's a moral thing, not a political thing. I don't even see why politics are involved in it. I will just say it like this: is I am pro-life from the moment that sperm touches the egg until the natural end of that cycle, old age, right? Like I'm not for any kind of killing or murder of anybody ever, at any stage of the game. Even very bad people. I was on death row. I lived with those sick people. Even them, I would not murder, because it's murder. Yes, they need to be separate from our society forever. They cannot live peacefully amongst us. But when you murder a murderer, you become a murderer. And also, you can never, ever, ever create a society where you never have people like that. You will always have bad. There will always be bad. The pendulum may be swinging right now towards the good, but you will always have bad. You have to have bad in order to have good. Just like there's people doing good while the world is bad, you will have people doing bad while the world is good. So it will always be around. We need to figure out how to remove them from our society and let them die of old age in their own misery or whatever. But murder is murder, no matter how you justify it. And so we should not do it as a society at any stage. You cannot teach value of life if you are ending it before it even has a chance to begin. It's impossible. Which kind of leads me to the next thing is relationships. When I said that I don't want you to be a clone of me, I don't. When you're in a relationship and you're going through this third eye thing, it's drastic. It's going to change you. And if you are in a relationship, your partner needs to know that you are going to change. And I suggest that they go through it also, so that you guys change together. Excuse me. But that's not always the case. And a lot of times, the partner don't want to do it. And that's perfectly fine. You don't have to. Again, you don't want a clone of yourself, right? How boring would that be if everyone was exactly like you? Which I think is a big problem these days, especially how everyone can just block and stuff. Oh, you don't agree with me? Block. Well, then you create this bubble. You're in this bubble where everyone agrees with you, and that's not real. That's not reality. So again, we're about staying in reality, and I know a lot of people don't like to hear the things that I say. I'm kind of blunt. I'm telling you how it is, and I kind of try to keep you grounded in reality and get you out of all this fantasy nonsense out here. Because I want you to be successful. I want you to open your eye for real. I want you to experience God yourself firsthand. I don't want you lost in all this nonsense out here. Oh, I'm working on my chakra. No, you're not. You're not. You don't even know what that is. So, anyway, so back to this relationship thing. It actually caused my divorce. I was super in love with my wife. That's actually why I passed the test, right? But I changed so much, and she kind of was going the opposite way, where we just didn't vibe anymore, and we couldn't do it. And also, neither one of us knew really what was going on with me at that time. Now I have a better understanding. I can kind of help guide other couples and stuff. And one thing I will say is even if your partner is not going to go through this, make them aware, but sit down and talk about it and like work things out. Be like, hey, you know, I'm going to change. This is going to be different about me, but I still love you. I still want to be with you. Still want a relationship. Let's work through things. The biggest thing for me was just accepting who I am becoming. You know, you love me for who you met, but I'm going to change, and I still need you to love me as in that new form, you know? And so, actually I just started, seeing someone, and, so far it's going really good, but that's one of the things that I really like about her is she is different from me, and she's still willing to accept me as this person. Because I am so different now, and I'm different than most people out there, right? I'm enlightened, but I'm still a little scrubby. I'm a little different. And she likes that about me, but also, and she's interested in these types of things and stuff, but she might not necessarily do them. And she's not the same as me. She's not. And that's what I was kind of looking for at first. I was like, oh, you know, I want this person that looks like me and acts like me and knows these things. And first of all, that doesn't exist. And second, it's too much like me. Like I was saying, I don't want a clone of me. I want somebody who's different and unique and their own person. And that's something like, just keep that in mind. You know, when you're out there, excuse me. When you're out there, if you're single and you're looking for somebody, just keep that in mind, right? Like, they don't have to be a clone. They don't have to be into all this. As long as they're okay with you doing it, right? And, you know, not everyone in the world is going to be into this stuff. The world is changing, and more people are learning about it and stuff like that, but don't cut yourself off from the world and from living and from being around people. I know a lot of people start isolating themselves, and it's hard to talk to people. It's hard to have small talk conversations. And, you know, how's the weather? And, you know, what else do you got to talk about? I ain't got nothing else to talk about except the Chrism Oil and reality, I guess. I don't know. I don't have much to talk about. So, you know, just keep all that in mind. All right, and just don't shut yourself off from the world. I know it's hard. You gotta get through those conversations, and like let me tell you this. So like when I'm around my family don't want nothing to do with it. They don't want to be enlightened. They don't want to be awake. They don't want to be woke. They don't want to be nothing. They want to be head in the sand type of people. And my sister even said that straight up. Like, literally, that's how they want to be. They don't want to know what's going on in the world or anything. And so that's fine. So I at first I tried to tell them all this stuff, right? And I have to realize that if I want to be around them, which I do, then I have to just not talk, basically. Just kind of hang out. And at first it was almost impossible because this just spews out of me. I cannot not talk about it, right? I tell everybody. I constantly talk about it. But I had to learn to tone it down, shut it down, and just live for a while if I want to be around them. And sometimes that's what you got to do. You know, it's not all about you. It's not all about this process, right? We still need to maintain these relationships, and they seem different. They seem like NPCs, or they seem like almost like they're fake, not living in reality. And that's fine, because not everybody here is going to do that. Your job is to do it for yourself, but then be like me and just tell people. But it doesn't have to be your family. I tell everybody. And if people want to be my friend, cool. That's great. But this is my reality, and this is what I talk about, and this is what I'm into. If you're not into that stuff, you know, then maybe we can't be close friends. But that doesn't mean that we can't be friends. That doesn't mean that I don't want to go bowling with Tony and his wife and me and my girl, right? Like, we can get together and go to a concert or go have dinner or something. Like, you still have to live, is my point, right? Don't shut yourself down. Don't isolate yourself and become some hermit. It was really tempting. And that's one reason why I always say, like, if I go out into the woods, none of you would ever see me again, because I would never come back. I would just go hermit out until I died, you know, living under a rock or something, like, literally. So I've really had to push myself not to do that. And my children have helped, you know. They're like, no, Dad, we're not going to go live out in the woods under a rock. So, well, one of my kids is all for it, but my other one's no. So just keep all that stuff in mind, you know. All right. I love you, my friends. Until next time.